We are live. Okay. Everyone can see me. Let's do a little check here. Looks like we're good here on the live chat. And we're good on YouTube. And I guess we're good on Twitter. Setting up the Twitter feed. And we're good here too. Look at that. All right. Awesome. So, well, it's an interesting time period of meteorology. Of course, we also have the baseball game on over here. I know, keep an eye on it. But this live chat is going to focus on our developing El Nino. And a lot of things are kind of standing out to me as we get into the warm season and start to really see how this El Nino is influencing the weather pattern. And the way I go about this is to consider what is unusual. Okay, so first of all, we have our stratosphere, which still has a ton of water vapor still up there in the upper, mid, and lower levels of the stratosphere. And that is leading to some interesting anomalies, some warm anomalies, some cold anomalies, and I think that is part of why we're seeing the high latitude block. Remember last year we saw like a lot of upper level lows. We're seeing a lot of that again this year. Then we have the sea surface temperatures in the Atlantic and in the Pacific. And I'll show you it right here. And what stands out to me is not so much the Atlantic here, which I know is warm and there's a potential it could enhance tropical cyclones, but we're not there yet. What really stands out to me is how expansive this area of warm water is in the tropical Pacific. And the reason why this is important is because it's setting up different thermal gradients than what you would normally see in an El Nino. What do I mean by that? Well, typically, if you have a strong east-based El Nino, and we certainly have strong warm anomalies in the eastern regions, then you start to see cold anomalies really take hold right around here, okay, right around your Pacific Islands. But we're not seeing that. What we're seeing is more of a displacement to the north. And the reason why that's really important is because it sets up where you start to develop your convection and the influences on the subtropical and polar jet streams. And what I look at when I'm studying that is the convection here. And I'll refresh this to make sure we get the latest data. Okay, so take a look at what we have evolving here. A lot of convection starting to focus here. And this is important because what that tells us is that it supports a trough axis here and a trough axis here. It also supports the basically an unsynced polar and subtropical jet stream. So you can end up with a ridge over the western United States and a trough over the desert southwest with severe weather breaking out over the plains that interacts with the trough that is hanging around our area. And it keeps our weather pattern unsettled. Now, in the warm season, your polar jet stream has shorter wavelength, and your subtropical jet stream is active, obviously, with strong shear, which is going to tear apart any short wave that's out here. But it's also going to introduce the potential for more rainfall here. And the question that I have, that I'm trying to work out here, is as this starts to evolve, and as it starts to take hold, are the cold fronts going to start to move slower and then we end up with more waves of rainfall? Or are we going to see an interaction with the subtropical jet stream where waves of low pressure come out of the Tennessee River Valley and pick up tropical elements, like a depression, for example, and draw more rainfall northward as we move from July into August? I'm not sure yet, but what I can tell you is this, is that the way that this El Nino is developing, because of the warmer atmospheric and also oceanic environment, I think it might be a mistake to go with your traditional strong El Nino forecast. The other thing that kind of stands out to me is what is happening in the stratosphere. This is the QBO. Okay, now the QBO is generally your winds at 50 and 30 millibars, right about here. And they tell you a lot, okay? When the QBO is positive, as it is now, the polar jet stream and subtropical jet stream, especially the polar jet stream, is very progressive. And you get a lot of fast-moving storms moving over the Atlantic, and you reduce the threat for high-latitude blocking. Why do I bring this up? Because we've been in a strong positive QBO state, and yet we are seeing areas of high-latitude blocking. So this means that the circulation that is governing these processes is being disrupted by the water vapor that is in the stratosphere, and that is creating a feedback which is supporting these high latitude regimes. So you can see right here, sorry about that, there you go. Since 2023, we've been in a strongly positive QBO state. This should mean that the polar jet stream is marching along. We shouldn't be seeing these upper level lows. Also notice we're starting to see a rapid decline. So when we take a look at what's above 30 millibars, is a negative state on the way. A negative QBO state supports increased potential for high latitude blocking, a slower, more amplified polar jet stream. So what I'm saying here is that with the reaction of the stratosphere and with the evolution of our convection, let's see. Oh no, it was a foul ball. Sorry about that. With our convection here, I'm thinking that we haven't seen anything yet in terms of the amplification of our polar and subtropical jet streams. I'm thinking that these signals tell us that it's going to be very difficult to get any type of heat waves this year in this type of weather pattern. And I'm also thinking that we're going to start to shift from this dry weather pattern to a more active humid weather pattern. Not so much severe thunderstorms, but a higher potential for rainfall over the region. What I don't know, and I'm being real honest here, is that I haven't seen, when I look back at all the observations in all the previous years and all of the data that I have, I don't have anything that is anywhere near the same of what I'm seeing right now. I have a unique stratospheric environment because of our volcano from 2 years ago. We have a warm Atlantic and Pacific, warmer than what I've ever experienced and the data that I have. And we have a developing strong El Nino that should focus more of the convection towards the south of Hawaii and towards the eastern Pacific, but instead we're seeing it more towards the dateline and the western Pacific. So right now, what I'm trying to say is that the volatility in the medium range, long range, and seasonal forecasts are going to be through the roof in this type of environment. You're going to see a lot of claims, a lot of announcements of what people think the winter is going to be, the fall is going to be, 15 days from now is going to be. I'm going to, of course, develop a forecast, but my confidence in these forecasts right now, given what I am seeing, is low. Because I haven't seen this type of combination before, and I don't have anything to compare it to in my climatological records. That's just the truth. So it's very interesting. We're living in a very interesting period of weather and a real challenge. I'm kind of looking forward to it because, quite frankly, it's going to really push my skill level, and it's really going to challenge what I know, what I think I know, and and my forecasting ability. And what I think you have to really do is take a step back from the rules and go back to the basics, which is, how does forcing work? How do they balance each other out? And what's happening now? And then try to work your way backwards. So a lot of interesting data in that respect for the long range. And I've been watching this for the past couple of weeks, and a strong east-based El Nino should feature a lot of tropical systems in the eastern Pacific, and it should feature a trough around, let's say, Mississippi, Alabama, and a trough in the subtropical jet stream around California with heavy rainfall going into California. And we're just not seeing that. We're seeing more of a west-based anomaly set up. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the water vapor satellite picture. This pattern is a perfect example of copy, paste, repeat. We have another upper level low that is going to be spinning its way towards our region and heading towards our neck of the woods. The forecast the next several days, let's say the next 7 days, basically is going to feature a threat for showers and thunderstorms each day as short waves revolve around this upper level low and head towards our neck of the woods. The showers and thunderstorms are going to be capable of heavier downpours because we're going to be transporting higher precipitable water values from the Gulf Coast into our area. But they all won't be not all the region will be impacted by these showers and thunderstorms. As far as the temperatures are concerned, the model guidance right now is having a hard time with the temperature forecast beyond 4 days. It's basically producing about a 10 to 15 degree swing in temperatures. And what I decided to do, based on the nature of this upper level low and the air masses involved here, is that I stayed on the cooler side. The 12Z guidance has been significantly warmer. The 0Z guidance has been significantly cooler. I've kind of been in between those two for the most part, and then we'll adjust once we get under day 5. But basically, the type of air mass that we're going to be dealing with over the next couple of days, and really probably for the next 15 days, is a mix of a polar maritime air mass with the maritime air mass coming in from here, polar air mass coming in from here, and then a tropical influence from the Gulf Coast is basically going to get suppressed to the south of the Carolinas and out towards the Atlantic. So this is going to be as far as forecasting, it's not too difficult of a forecast. It's an upper level low. Every day you're going to have a threat for showers. But in terms of temperatures, there's going to be some days where you're easily going to be in the lower 80s, and then the next day you'll be stuck in the upper 60s because you got showers hanging around your region. So there's not a lot to talk about as far as the next 7 days are really concerned, because it's just one short wave after another. I mean, the ensemble shows it pretty nicely here. One short wave after another, with a lot of pesky showers. And this could push a lot of the region to slightly above normal levels in terms of precipitation for this time period. But overall, for the month, we'll probably start to creep back towards more normal. But we have a lot of dry air. So really what we need to break our drought that we're in is a lot of these systems with a tenth to a quarter of an inch here every other day, starting to cut away at the dry layers that are in place in the region. So that's basically my breakdown of the pattern as we stand right now. I figure I will take a lot of your questions and we'll keep an eye on the game. The Mets are up now 5-1. There you go. Hey, look. You know what? Honestly, the Mets need this game more than the Yankees because they need to get their season back online. So let's see how it works out. So let's dive into some of these questions. Let's see. All right. It's a good turnout here for tonight. For a summer evening, it's a pretty good turnout. So again, I appreciate everyone coming out and joining. It's been a real honor to set this all up. And of course, we're live on YouTube, on Twitter, and of course, in the live chat in the premium section. Premium members, as always, get the first and all their questions answered. So, amazing impact that Tunga eruption has had because it put so much water vapor into the stratosphere. Yet, as I said when this first started, it was going to challenge forecasters, and this is why I put a really low confidence in last year's winter forecast. I probably will this year too, is because we never seen something like this as far as in observed time. I mean, I'm sure it's happened before, but before the satellite era, we haven't really had this opportunity to see this type of influence, and it's wreaking havoc with the high latitude blocking. Now, in the cold season time periods, we had high latitude blocking, but it was just in the wrong position. In the warm season, we've seen plenty of activity, plenty of high latitude blocking developing and creating havoc. Oh, Yankees just hit a home run. You knew that was going to happen. Let's see here. Do you expect the eastern part of the ENSO region to cool a bit as El Nino progresses, especially given the convection and upper air is acting more west base? That's a great question. What I expect to see happening is that Nino 1+2 will cool off. It typically does, and the far eastern region is usually the most volatile. With that said, I like Nino 3 and 3.4 to kind of stabilize around 1.5, and that should support a moderate to strong El Nino development. But I think that's where I think we're going to see more of a basin-wide El Nino with 1+2 cooling down to something a little bit more reasonable, and Nino 3 stabilizing around, let's say 1.4, 1.5, somewhere in that range. When do you anticipate the next period of wildfire haze and smoke in our areas based on the upcoming pattern in the next couple of weeks? You know, that situation was unique because the upper level low stalled at just the right position right around Maine, and it set up a perfect wind component that basically took all that smoke and drove it right into our region. I don't think we're going to see that same setup again perfectly as it stands right now. We'll see how that sets up over the next couple of weeks, of course, but as far as bad as it got, I don't see that taking place. As far as there being the potential for some haze in the sky, maybe producing moderate concerns where anyone with asthma might have some issues, I could certainly see that anytime we have a northwesterly component in the winds, but nowhere near as bad as what we saw a couple of days ago. Looking at the 250 millibar winds on Earth New School, looks like the polar jet stream is very energetic. Let's take a look at that. We'll zoom in. And, let's take a look at the Pacific first. And you can see what I mean by the convection here really helping to enhance the polar jet stream and causing this amplification. And then that continues to translate into North America with basically, it's a perfect example of just taking a rope and creating all these waves marching along. Now, right now, we're in a more progressive pattern. So these upper level lows just keep on marching their way across and moving through the region. The subtropical jet stream, again, notice how strong this is. And by the way, this is the point I was making in terms of the tropical season. You have a lot of strong vertical wind shear here setting up. And when you have this type of vertical wind shear set up, it's really hard, even with a warm Atlantic Ocean, to support a lot of development in the tropical Atlantic, okay? In this type of environment, I would not be surprised because of the warm Atlantic that we get a lot of these little weak tropical lows, let's say tropical depressions. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if we get above normal tropical depressions, but below normal hurricanes and tropical storms based on this environment we're seeing now. We'll see how it plays out, but certainly a very interesting setup playing out here. Easier to name who hasn't been hurt on the Yankees than who has. Yeah, you know how I feel about the WBC and how that enhances injuries. Made it even though I feel like crud picked up some sort of summer cold. Summer colds are the worst. That is for sure. Nope, can't shake them. Have plenty of green tea and rest. Let's see what's going on YouTube. I thought we were going to be in a La Nina for a while. What changed recently? La Ninas have never been recorded to go beyond 3 years. Okay, the previous La Nina lasted 3 years. It was called a triple dip. Most La Ninas last only 1 year. You get a few that last 2 years, and it's extremely rare to have 3 years. So there was no expectation that La Nina was going to continue any further. There was expectation that we definitely move towards a neutral state, and now it's pretty clear that we are going to be moving into a strong El Nino state. El Ninos are more difficult to even go 2 years. I don't think I've experienced a triple El Nino year setup, but certainly La Nina, the previous one, was one of the record books, and now we might be going the other way. Good evening. Now that the 2023 hurricane season has begun, does El Nino mean stronger hurricanes? No, El Nino increases vertical wind shear. And when you have vertical wind shear, it leads to more disorganized tropical low pressure systems. There's a lot of confusion out there about tropical system development and the impacts on from ENSNO. La Ninas help to enhance tropical systems. And the reason why is because of the reduction of vertical wind shear in the atmosphere over the Atlantic Ocean. In El Ninos, it's different. The subtropical jet stream, which is this jet stream right here and right here, strengthens the subtropical jet stream and it enhances vertical wind shear. So vertical wind shear in a warm core tropical low is very bad. It basically rips the circulation apart and creates a weaker or even non-existent tropical low pressure system. We'd love to see you do a live chat on SKUT and hydrograph interpretation sometime. You know, the next time we have a severe weather event, I think I'll definitely try to attempt that. And we'll walk through it. Obviously, right now, there's not much really to show, unfortunately. But definitely, that will definitely be something I will definitely keep an eye on. Let's see if there's anything going on in the Twitter world. I'll make sure. Hey, hon, do you have any questions or anything from Twitter world?
I see nothing.
Okay, that works. I see nothing. All right. So we'll come back to here. Meanwhile, you know, I think I figured out what's going on with pitching in Major League Baseball this year. And it's all connected to that clock and not how you think. Think about this, especially older pitchers. Not so much while they're pitching, but look how much less time they have in between innings to recover. And that as the game goes on, they're getting tired faster and faster. It's not just Scherzer, but a lot of pitchers, let's say beyond 2 years, basically didn't have a chance to get used to this in AAA and AA, are having a harder time recovering after a long inning because the time period between them getting off the mound and coming back is creating a lot of issues, I think. Evening, Steve. Saw some talk on Weather Twitter that smoke returns next week. True? All right, so let me pull up the 500 millibar pattern here. Okay. In fact, you know what? I got a better idea. Let me pull this up. The winds. Yeah, this is perfect. Okay, so I'm going to pull up the winds for next week. Now here we are early next week. We have a lot of disturbances rotating through, but last week we had a stronger 850 millibar component coming straight from Quebec right into our region. Why? Because we had a very strong upper level low. In this case, we have more of an upper level trough, but not a sustained upper level low. So you have a lot of low pressure systems moving through. You have a lot of shifting in the winds. It's not sustained, and it's also not bringing in the thickness of the smoke that we saw last week. And it's coming more from Ontario when you're taking a look at the orientation here as you move down. Last week, the winds were all pretty much uniformed from 250 millibars down to 850 millibars. And then it started, as we started to get less and less smoke, it started to break up. This time, the winds are not uniform to begin with, and you have a lot of short waves moving through in this scenario. A lot of, and we don't have a sustained upper level low in this setup. You can also see that at 500 millibar heights, it's a different setup here. Now, last time you had a powerful upper level low that was right here, and it just uniformly took all that smoke from all levels of the atmosphere and drove it right into the northern mid-Atlantic. This time it's a much weaker upper level low, so the circulation's much weaker, it's much more disorganized, and it's lifting north faster. So while there will be a northwesterly flow, it's not the same type of setup. And I see the Mets are blowing the lead. Wonderful. Well, it's still 5-4, but man, oh man. It's not going to be our year, guys. Yes. Oh, we got a question on YouTube. Let's see here. What does the pico-to-solar cycle affect? How does the pico-to-solar cycle affect the hurricane season? There's no statistical or reliable data. There's some theories that go around that would suggest that the enhancement, the peak of the solar cycle with the increase of sunspots could, in theory, enhance the development of convection on the tropics, but that theory has not been backed up with observations, and it's a very poorly supported theory right now. So there really isn't any strong connection between the solar cycle and hurricane seasons at this time. There is a little bit stronger of a connection with the solar cycle and wintertime circulations. And here's the reason why. When you're dealing with the cold season, right, you have the sun, you have the earth tilted away from the sun. So you're not getting direct sunlight, so it's not uniform. So you have a better potential of creating different types of gradients. And they blew the lead. I knew it. Anyway, you have a higher potential for a gradient in the atmosphere, right? So during the winter season, the activity or lack of activity of the sun influences your ozone development, which in turn influences your potential for stratospheric warming events and whatnot. In the summer season, you have more of a direct input from the sun. So the differences in your sunspots is not as strong, right? It doesn't have as strong of an impact. And also you're dealing with the equator here, so you're not dealing with the same type of degree of influence on the atmosphere. Good evening. Do you think we could get out of this pattern and bring us heat waves and showers and thunderstorms? No. There is literally no indication of that whatsoever in any of the guidance. Typically, in this type of pattern, you really don't. And of course, it's Dylan. All right, Dylan. I'll put it to you this way. This summer is not for you, man. If you're looking for heat waves and severe thunderstorms here, severe thunderstorms possible. Absolutely. Especially from northwesterly flow, maybe an MCS, something of that nature. But in terms of temperatures in the mid 90s and thunderstorms breaking out in the afternoon, Florida. That's where I would say. Maybe not even Florida. Florida might be more like in the 80s and tropical. But typically not in El Nino years, and especially not strong El Nino years. You typically have a sustained trough over or just to the east of the region, which typically leads to the pattern that we're seeing now. Yeah. Let's see. Did the system we got yesterday help with the southern New Jersey wildfires? Also, did the Canadian areas with wildfires get any rain? I didn't see anything as far as appreciable rainfall in Canada. I know that they are starting to catch up on getting some control over them. I believe that the fire down in southern New Jersey is pretty much under control now. So that's certainly some good news. And of course, that rainfall helped a bit as well. For the moment, the visible sunspots are decaying. Yes, they are. We're kind of in this time period where new sunspots are getting ready to form and other ones are starting to decay. We remain in an active sun period. And what the active sun does is that it reduces the ozone in the atmosphere because of the solar waves impacting the upper stratosphere, which starts to impact the mid-stratosphere and lower stratosphere. Again, the most significant impact of this happens during the cold season, which is when I really pay attention to it. It doesn't have that much of a connection from everything I've read and seen so far and the studies I've seen so far with any type of tropical development. And so far, we're getting great questions tonight. Outstanding, guys. Outstanding. Unlike Mets pitching, outstanding. All right, let's see what else we have in our observations here. Let's see. It is pretty warm still for this evening. Temperatures in the upper 60s to lower 70s over the interior, lower to mid 70s along the coast. And I'm not seeing much in the way of any precipitation near us, but boy, that upper level low is certainly getting pretty interesting here, and could send some pretty good rainfall. Let's take a look at the HRR guidance here. Let's see here. I think it's this one. Here we are. And let's see, what do we have here? So as this upper level low is approaching, it looks like tomorrow afternoon we have a pretty good shot at seeing some nice showers here. This could be more bark than bite, but certainly a potential here, maybe picking up another 10th to a quarter of an inch of rainfall for tomorrow with this upper level low. And that's really going to be the theme throughout this upcoming week, is these short waves just rotating on through and bringing the threat for rainfall through the region through the next 90 hours, and again continuing on through much of this week. Just these pesky showers and pesky low pressure systems. Tough to see any short waves coming off the African coast and spinning up as long as the strong 250 millibar jet is roaring right in the area. That's exactly my point. There's been a lot of talk about, hey, the Atlantic's very warm and we had some model guidance and it produced a lot of tropical systems. And this is sometimes where myself and climate scientists have a difference. And I think this comes down to the difference between operational meteorologists and climate scientists. Climate scientists have a lot more trust in their models and model output. So they say, hey, our model puts out this. That means we have high confidence it's going to do X, Y, and Z. Operational meteorologists, when they look at that model data, what they typically like to do is to tear it apart and say, okay, what could go wrong here? What could be missing? And what are the errors involved? So when I look at this data about when they did a test with a strong El Nino and a warm Atlantic, or just a warm ocean state in general, they displaced the vertical wind shear to the north, but that's not what we're seeing in the observations. What we're seeing in the observations is strong vertical wind shear over the Atlantic. So as long as that's in place and as long as you have a lot of dry air, let me pull up the water vapor. Look at all this dry air. That is a lot of dry air in the Atlantic. And when you have that much dry air in the tropical Atlantic, it makes it very difficult for these tropical waves along the intertropical convergence zone to develop. So we have to wait and see how this all evolves. I mean, we're just at the start of it, and we'll see how it all plays out. But I kind of like my idea of, if you're going to lean on a warm Atlantic, then I'd watch out for a lot of tropical depressions and a lot of waves of tropical low pressure systems trying to develop over a decayed cold front. Let's say that's hanging around the Gulf of Mexico or around the coastal waters of the Carolinas. And then that gets pulled northward. That's what I'd watch out for. I don't see this as a season where you're going to get a lot of long track hurricanes marching their way across the Atlantic in this type of hostile environment. But again, we'll have to keep an eye on it, see what plays out, and see how it moves forward over the next couple of weeks. Let's see. And I am just looking over some more data here. Let's see if we got a new update on the European. See if we got 18Z data in yet. That's the one thing I'm looking forward to when the clocks shift back, is that we get mild data coming in even faster. That I can't wait for. New 18Z European guidance is showing again the same thing. These low pressure systems marching across. Notice that the features are shifting northward with each run. Pretty much indicating that we're going to see a low pressure system is going to be weakening as it moves across and dealing with a lot of pop-up showers. But with these showers, let me pull up the precipitable water values. Where are they? I'll pull it up over here. Right here. With this type of environment, you see how the precipitable water values kind of spike here with each low pressure system spinning through. This tells me that within these showers, a few locations are going to end up with some heavier downpours. So a couple locations could end up with a quick inch of rain, while other locations struggle to get even a tenth of an inch of rain out of this weather pattern. So it's a very, very active, very volatile weather pattern, to say the least. But it's going to give us the potential of seeing maybe a rebound and getting us out of our dry weather conditions. So that is pretty much what I have for tonight as far as thoughts and details. If we have any other questions, please put them in. Oh, there we go. There's Car's asking a question. With all the wind shear in the Atlantic, is there a greater possibility of a hybrid subtropical storm spinning up with low-level warm core and upper level that is more cold core from the upper level divergence? I think that's going to be a higher threat in the fall. I think in the fall, we're going to have to watch out for subtropical storms, like let's say in September and October, developing along the East Coast. I think that is a major concern that I'm going to be watching out for, and I'm working on for the fall forecast. Not so much during the heart of summer, but I think as we head towards September and October, and you can even throw in November, I think that's going to be an issue that we're going to have to seriously keep an eye on. Keep an eye on low pressure systems developing in the Gulf of Mexico and off the Carolina coast. I think both of those areas definitely feature that potential. Not so, and also, if you happen to be cruising, going out on cruises and stuff, watch out for that also in the central Atlantic. I would not be surprised if that happens quite a bit in that scenario. That would definitely be a concern I'd definitely watch out for in that setup. Now, I'm curious here. This is some pretty vigorous radar feedback here. Let's see what it actually looks like. Well, we are getting some actual heavier rainfall here in western Pennsylvania. See, what you like to do is when you see these type of signals showing up here in the radar, is that you go back and you double check it with the actual observations. And yeah, we're not really seeing a lot in terms of thunderstorm signals, but certainly heavy rainfall signals here and there, back to the Ohio River Valley, heavy rainfall let's see here. Our visibility down to 5 standard miles, 3 miles. So yeah, that's some pretty heavy rainfall. But also a lot of light rainfall where it's suggesting it's going to be moderate. So it looks like if you combine the radar with the observations, you get a first heavy burst of rainfall with this upper level low spinning through, and then a lot of light rain behind it. So this would tell me that tomorrow, the initial leading edge of it could be a nice heavy downpour for about 15, 30 minutes, and then it gives way.
You got something on Twitter?
Oh, I do.
Yeah, I can't read it out.
What do we got here? With northwest flow predominant, will derechos be more likely this summer? That's a good question. What I would need in that scenario is a stronger heat wave set up in the Ohio River Valley, diving down towards, let's say, Washington, D.C. to enhance the thermal gradient, and then a series of short waves diving to the north of that. So what I'd look for, let me just go back here, is the exact opposite of this. I'd want to see a ridge here. Actually, hold it. It would help if I actually turn the map on. I'd want to see a ridge here, like let's say building up towards Montana, should I say Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, through the Ohio River Valley and towards the southeast, like this, where you get a nice little heat wave, temperatures in the 90s, 100 degrees, all that good stuff. Then you get a polar air mass diving in through New England, and then you get these little short waves marching across, cutting through the eastern Great Lakes and heading towards the Delmarva Peninsula and New York. So essentially this upper level low I'd want here, and then I'd want to this ridge here to build northward. Right now, when I take a look at the long range ensemble guidance, I really don't see any indication of that. And let's see about the long range EPS, the 45-day version. Let's see here. Okay, towards the end of the month, you could see indication right here, possibly. So let's say around June 27th, there's that threat. Not so much after that. And as we go all the way through July, of course, you never take this verbatim, but the overall theme is a trough axis around the Ohio River Valley to the east coast, ridge more towards the plains and the Rockies, another trough on the west coast. This would keep us more in a active cold front. Certainly the potential for severe thunderstorms would exist, but not so much in terms of widespread MCS damage. But you only need one to really create some havoc there. Kind of on the cruise ship steering into the heart of the storms. Yeah, what is with that? I don't understand that. Like, there is no doubt that there is a storm on the way. I mean, if you're not sure about the satellite pictures, look out the window. There's thunderstorms and lightning, and so let's go right in the middle of it. What is that? I don't get it. What are your weather predictions for summer of 2023? Oh, man, we've already been through that. Basically, what we've seen so far has been my forecast. Very active pattern, limited potential for heat waves, temperatures on average running near to below normal. Precipitation has been a little bit drier than I thought it was going to be so far. We'll see if that changes. But certainly, I think that we move back to more of a near normal precipitation regime. But basically, what we've seen is what I've been expecting for the most part, minus the smoke. I really wasn't expecting that type of setup this year. Yeah, I really don't understand the cruise ships thing. I really don't. I mean, you know, if there's one thing, like if you don't trust the forecast, right? You're on a boat, right? And you're the captain, right? And you're standing on this boat and you're looking out towards the Atlantic and there's flashes of lightning and the waves are getting bigger. Now, I'm not a captain, but what I would say to myself is, gee, that doesn't look like fun. I'm going to go the other way, whichever way that might be, but I don't think I should go headlong into all the big waves and the lightning and the wind. I'd probably want to go the other way, right? I mean, that would make sense, right? But apparently not. With the cruise ships, it is not like it's a one-time thing. It becomes a regular thing. It happens a lot. Yeah, it does. It does. It happens too much. I don't get it. This summer stinks. I disagree. I'm loving this summer. Are you kidding me? I tell you what, anyone who has to pay for an electric bill is loving this summer. I barely have to turn on the air conditioning. I can have the windows open. It's comfortable. I'm not sweating to death, right? How strong is El Nino for 20? It looks like it's going to be at the very least moderate to strong.
On Twitter too.
Okay.
I saw winter. Any thoughts on winter yet with a possible? Oh shit, I can't read these terms, man.
Modiki El Nino. I don't have any thoughts on the winter yet. I think it's too early. I know that there are some entities out there that put out the winter forecast, or at least a preliminary winter forecast in August and September. I think that's way early, and the reason why is because a lot of the factors that influence the winter really don't start to get fleshed out until October and November. So, in my opinion, I try not to go that far ahead because we still have to work out fall. And there are factors that happen in fall, like snow growth over northern Canada, the state of the sea ice in the Arctic, the evolution of the QBO, the evolution of tropical forcing, how that's playing out, any unexpected changes in terms of sea surface temperature anomalies that sometimes can switch on a dime within 3-4 weeks before the season begins. There's a lot of factors. So I know a lot of people look for the seasonal forecast, and I mean, I could produce one. I know that God knows there's plenty of guys out there on YouTube producing all sorts of, buzzwords and outlandish forecasts that you could put out there that, I saw one where like the Arctic summer and all this other crap. It's not how I do forecasting, and it's not how. I mean, if I wanted to just hype stuff up and get you all excited, I guess I could, but I wouldn't be able to live with myself, so I don't bother. But I do think that this El Nino is going to be a moderate to strong one, and typically that means a very active subtropical jet stream, and typically El Nino winters feature more potential for what we call phasing low pressure systems. That's when the polar jet stream and the subtropical jet stream interact. So certainly a higher potential for that, just on the basis of it being El Nino. But in terms of how high latitude blocking is going to look, whether or not they phase at the right time, the type of cold air masses, the cryosphere and what state that is, I have no idea. And neither does anyone else. And all those factors matter a lot. But outstanding questions, guys. Dear Mother Nature, can you please give me a snowstorm during the winter? I always say this, man. You always get what you don't want when you don't want it. So, I don't know. The whole thing is that for the number of years in which we've had bad winters, we always flip around and have some very stormy winters. So, it always evens out. It does. The atmosphere always tries to find a happy medium, which is going to make things a lot more interesting with all of the energy out there in the atmosphere. Oh, hold it. Hold it. No, that's an out. You can always tell whether or not someone actually hits a home run, not by the way the crowd reacts. Watch the outfielder. If the outfielder starts to jog and then positions his feet like this, right, then you know it's going to be a fly ball out. Huh? I know they can't see my feet, but basically they sit on the back, they come back here, right, and then you don't even need to see their feet, right? They're just back like this and they're up like this, right? Then you already know. I always watch the outfielder. I don't worry about the fans or screaming and whatnot. Well, I think that's it for tonight. I think we did pretty well. Answered a lot of questions. As always, you guys were outstanding. And we'll be back again next week. And it looks like, let me just check the schedule here. Yep. We'll be back to doing our live chat back on Wednesday the 21st, 8 p.m. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys there. And as always, stay safe out there.